Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to sixth grade math stem and leaf plots lesson. Pause while you write the lesson title in your math notebook. Pause again while you write the lesson objective in your math notebook. Today's objective is I can make and interpret stem and leaf plots by completing practice problems with 100% accuracy in multiple attempts. Today's standard that we'll be working on is create a statistical question given a context and develop a data set with a given measure of center, spread, and overall shape, and determine how additional data points impact these measures. We're going to start today's lesson with a key idea. And the key idea is about stem and leaf plots. You should have this information in your words worth knowing. A stem and leaf plot uses the digits of data values to organize a data set. Each data value is broken into a stem, digit or digits on the left, and a leaf, digit or digits on the right. A stem and leaf plot shows how data are distributed. And this is something that's really important. It shows you that the key explains what the stems and leaves represent. So for example, in this stem and leaf plot, the key tells us that the 2 and the 0 equal a 20. So that means that the 2 is in the tens place, and the 0 is in the ones place. So that's important information. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes that line separates with a decimal point or something like that. Or we're looking at the hundreds place on the left-hand side and then the tens on the right. It's different. So the key is a really important part of your stem and leaf plot. Now we're going to take a look at example 1, where we are actually creating or making a stem and leaf plot. Our directions are make a stem and leaf plot of the length of the 12 cell phone calls. So if you look at the graph, it's actually a table to your left. Here's where we're getting our data. So the first step 1, is to put the data in order. So just like when you're doing the mean and all of that, the range, there's really no shortcut to rewriting the data in order. If you just throw it out there randomly, it's not going to help you very much. Step 2, you choose the stems and the leaves. Because the data values range from 2 to 55, we're going to use the tens digits for the stems and the ones digits for the leaves. And we have to be sure to include the key. So you just, when you're done, you're going to be sure and make a sample, take a sample from your stem and leaf plot, and you're going to make the key. So you put the 1 on the left and the 4 on the right and the line in between, and you say key 1 line 4 equals 14 minutes, because that's what we're measuring our call length in. Our step 3 is we write the stems to the left of the vertical line. So our stems for all of our single digit numbers are all 0, because the number in the tens place for those is a 0. And so here's a note. It says order the stems vertically. The stem for data values less than 10 is 0. And your stems need to be in order. So that's the whole point of a stem and leaf plot, is to organize our data. So if we scramble up our stems and our leaves, then nothing is organized. And then our leaves also need to be horizontally, and they also need to be in order. And Another important note here is we include stems that don't have any leaves. So we'll get to that in just a second. So while we're on step 3, we're writing the stems to the left of the vertical line. We know that our data goes from 2 to 55, so our stems are going to go from 0 to 5 because that's what we have tens places for. And so we can write our leaves for our 0 place. We have a 2, 3, 5, and 6. So for a 0 in the tens place, we have a 2, 3, 5, and 6. And then for those numbers that have a 1 in the tens place, we write their leaves. So we have a 10, so that's a 0 on the right, and we have a 14, that's a 4 on the right. We have an 18, so that's an 8 on the right. And for the numbers that are in the 20s, there's 2 of those, and they're both 23, so we write 2 3s. So remember, even if they're identical numbers, you have to write them both times. And then 30 has 2 numbers, so we write the 30 as a 0 and the 36 as a 6. So the 30 part of that is to the left, and then we write the ones places to the right as the leaf. We have no numbers beginning with 4, but we still include that on our left-hand side. We still include the stem. And then we have one number that starts with a 5, and it also ends with a 5, so we put that in there. So that was step 3. That was our hardest step. Actually, that was step 3 and step 4 combined. I jumped ahead. So step 4 was writing the leaves. And then you have your stem and leaf plot, and don't forget to include your key. Let's take a look at example 2A, and we're going to concentrate on just 2A for the first part. So it says we're interpreting a stem and leaf plot. The stem and leaf plot shows student test scores. So for example 2A, it says how many students scored less than 80 points. So if we look at A, it says there are 5 scores less than 80 points. So in order to figure this out, we look at the stem part and we find the 8, and then we go, well, it asked us for all the ones that are less than 80 points. So we can just count those up. So our step 1 is to count the number of scores that are less than 80. So count scores, scores, less than 80. And 5 students scored less than 80 points. Now let's move on to 2B. It says how many students scored at least 90 points. So we want to look at all the scores that are in the 90s and the hundreds. So we have 3 scores in the 90s and 1 score that is 100. So our step here is to count scores that are greater than or equal to 90. And there are 4 of those. So there's 90, there's 92, 99, and 100. So 4 students scored at least 90 points. And finally, we're going to look at question C, 2C. How are the data distributed? So we want to know if it's skewed left, skewed right. And it says there are few low test scores and few high test scores. So most of the scores are in the middle. And indeed, if you draw this, if you were to turn this sideways and make a graph out of it, you can see that it's pretty well peaked right in the center, and it's low on both ends. So your step for that is to look at the distribution of the data. And stem and leaf plots make it really easy to do that. Now we're going to look at example 3, making conclusions from a stem and leaf plot. Which statement is not true? So we're given the stem and leaf plot about these plant heights, and it shows us pictures of these beautiful plants over here. So let's take a look and see which ones are not true. So we can see it says most of the plants are less than 20 inches tall. So if you look at the ones that are 20 inches tall, that would be all the ones that are in the tens and in the zeros for their stem. And so you can see that that is true. And the median plant height is 11 inches. Finding the median with a stem and leaf plot is super easy because all of your numbers are already in order. So we can cross out our highest number and our lowest number and our highest and our lowest, and you just keep going. Highest, lowest. Until you're left with the median. So the median value is 10. Ooh, so this one is false. But let's double check and make sure that we got it right. The range of the plant heights is 35 inches. So 36 was our highest value, and 1 was our lowest value. So 36 minus 1 is 35. So that one's true. And the plant height that occurs the most often is 11 inches. And if you can see under my slashes there, you can see, let me erase some of those. You can see that 11 occurs twice, and the rest of them only occur once, so that is true as well. So the one that is false is that the plant heights are 10 inches. The median plant height is 10 inches, not 11 inches. So the correct answer is B. So your steps for doing this are to test each answer to see if it is true. Okay, and remember that you are looking for the one that is false, so the one that is not true. Finally, what's next? You need to be sure that you complete your notes in your interactive student notebook, complete your Google form questions, review your lesson if you need to, and complete your Big Ideas Math assignment in your Math Spiral notebook. Submit that assignment in Big Ideas Math when it is 100% correct and not before. Be sure to track your progress on your playlist.